I would like to start just to do a little review of what we have out on our website. We've typically had out here during the budget season the last few years on the front page of our website, the OpenGov financial information. We have been able to get that uploaded into the system, so folks can go in. If you click on the OpenGov financial information, it will open to this tab. In terms of on the left-hand side, you have the annual information with different views. Those different views will give folks a chance to be able to toggle through information and look at it in a lot of different formats. The first one, which is what's open here, can allow you to go over and look under the 1920 column. Take a look at, for example, under expenditures. You can look at the overall expenditures are $55 million with transfers of $13.6 million. You can look through and see on an overall budget what the breakdown is of those expenditures. Personnel services, for example, being $21 million or 38% of overall expenditures, and you can just toggle through and see the breakdown of the information in a lot of different categories this way. Not only for an overall budget, but we spend a lot of time talking about just the general fund. You can do the same thing on the general fund to click into the budget information for expenditures and take a look at what the breakdown of what those expenditures are by category. For example, personnel services is about 75% of general fund costs. You can look at that information in a different format. It's what type of expenses does the general fund pay for? Mm-hmm. Okay. That does the same breakdown as what I just did, breaking it down into those categories. You can divide it up into how we end up reporting it on the state forms. Public safety as a category is 60% of overall expenditures. You can really drill down into categories like this. Within public safety, it breaks it down by each of our budget areas. It doesn't necessarily do a total for fire department, but you can look at fire administration, fire control, hazardous materials handling, and what the costs are for that. So like when Chief Trexel did his presentation last night, he talked about fire control and what that portion of the budget is, being at the just over $3 million. He mentioned like with ambulance operations too, how that increased this into this next year as we moved some personnel from fire control over into the ambulance category. So folks can drill down and kind of get a flavor of how all the information combines. Can back up and for example tonight, if someone wants to take a look at what Rhonda will cover under culture and recreation, not park maintenance, she's not going to cover park maintenance, but library operations. Within the culture and recreation category, the library accounts for $1.45 million of the expenditures in the proposed budget, or just shy of 50% of this category's expenditures. The remainder of this is things that Eric will cover in his budget. But folks can drill down into the library and you can't do that in here. I was thinking that you could drill down into categories of expenditures, but you can't on that. Not on that report. For those who want to take a look at, say, the police department, there's a tab there for the police department. And you see how heavily dependent it is on personnel costs, 76%. There will be a notable difference between how much of the personnel costs are of the police department versus the fire department, whereas in the police, it's right at that 76%. In the fire department, personnel cost is over 90%. Why is it? What's the difference? DESCOM. We fund DESCOM out of police department, so we have a big contractual service expenditure amount that's expensed in the police department that doesn't come up in the fire department. Otherwise, both departments would come into that at that 90% level of their overall cost is personnel related. For folks who want to look at, there's for the library itself a breakdown. So there's a tab here for the library. You can look in personnel costs here are 80% of their budget. Commodities, I'm sure she'll get into a little bit. That's where they're buying their books. It's 6% of their budget is books and other material for within the system. For those who want to look at an area that Don's going to be covering, of course Eric's is in here, Recplex, golf course, swimming pool. Don's areas are all within proprietary funds, so if you want to look at some of those, proprietary funds are ones that are supposed to be somewhat self-sustaining. Somewhat I use loosely because you have the golf course and Recplex in here. But you can look through the categories in here. And here is not an easy way to look at, say, like the golf course. For example, this is either golf course administration or maintenance. This is either the clubhouse or or maintenance. It breaks it into two separate categories. But you can look at each of those individual areas and go through here. Solid waste is going to be one of the areas that Don covers tonight. Wastewater treatment plant, the basic operations will be one that he'll cover. Mazel is more into an area that Nick covers, the capital projects, is our debt payments. Well, then it says here 17 more grouped. Well, you can click on it and it'll break out all of them. And in here, you can look at the Recplex is listed in here as three separate pieces. You have concessions, operations, and maintenance for three separate areas. So folks can drill down in a lot of different ways into the information that's out there, and I certainly encourage them to get an idea. You know, we have a new category. We haven't had, for example, stormwater as a separate utility. It's been included within the sewer department prior to this. It's gonna, as we move forward, it'll start to be budgeted as its own category. And again, this is just something for folks to be able to take a look at and look through a lot of details in a lot of different ways. You can do it on your own time. If you have questions as information comes up in here, this is the kind of stuff that can contact Stephanie or myself. Yeah, for those who are interested in the golf course, overall, this does have a this combines their operations or the clubhouse along with the maintenance of so you get an overall total for what their expenditures are. The expenses out there about just shy of $600,000. And I'm not sure why it layers them on top of each other. Revenues are listed at 583. And the same thing with Recplex. You can look at what's in the system out there for this, and this will be the base information that when Eric does presentations on his departments that he'll be covering. So for expenditures out at the Recplex, $570,000, and revenues at $555,000. So, and not only are you able to look at what the current budget is, but you're able to take a look at, it shows the previous year's actuals are listed there, but as you look at it, I think down below you can get some of the previous year's budgets too. So those who like to look at stuff not in the graph form but in numerical form can look at the bottom, and you can do that on all of those reports. So just to get you up to date on where things are, it is now loaded into the system so folks can at their leisure go through. Any questions on that?
No, it's just good to,
Nice.
it's good to see. That was an issue when I first got on council, was transparency, and I just like seeing that. We're trying to make sure everything is available, so that's good, that's cool in the game.
Was there anything else that I needed to cover on that stuff? Okay. And then I think tonight, first was it Rhonda, the library? So we'll get her presentation set up and have a good night.
My cup is leaking. I didn't spill. Thank you.
Okay, well, good evening. Before we dive into our budget, I always like to acknowledge our volunteer board members when they make the time in their busy schedules to come to an extra meeting. So I wanted to recognize that tonight we have Jerry Parks with us. I know you all know Jerry, and Mary Wynant.
Thank you.
The board is made up of 7 individuals, and within that, they also have a committee that I work with when it comes to the budget. And both Jerry and Mary are on that committee, as well as Matt Shin, but he couldn't be here tonight. So the committee works with me from the very start of the budget process to review the proposal and then take it to the full library board to review and approve, even before I come and meet with Jim and Stephanie. So they've been along for all of this process so far, so I appreciate them being here tonight. So I'm going to use our strategic plan throughout the presentation because it all comes back to this. The Library Board of Trustees, along with some community and staff input, developed this strategic plan in 2018. And there are 4 main goals, so you'll see these as we go through. They guide our work on a regular basis at the library, and they also guide the way that we allocate funds and we look at the budget. So I'll refer back to those as we go through. Now, I was just here in November and did our annual report, so you got a lot of information about use and that kind of stuff at that time, so I'll try to keep that to a minimum tonight. One thing I forgot to mention during the annual report is that we were recently reaccredited with the state. Every 3 years we go through that process, and so we were fully reaccredited, and that is in large part due to the work that the Board of Trustees does with us. One of the things you have to do to be accredited with the state is to have a strategic plan, and so it all comes together with that. So the proposed budget, as Jim said, is about $1.4 million for fiscal year 20, and it is based on maintaining current staffing and current service levels. So there's nothing new or asking for in this budget. So to put that in context, I've given a little history here of our expenditures budget over the last several years. I started with fiscal year 06 because that was the last full fiscal year we were in our old building. So it just kind of gives you a little perspective with that, as well as the recent years. So the fiscal year 20 proposed expenditures fall right between fiscal year 8 and fiscal year 9 expenditures. So in other words, the proposed budget is less than what was budgeted for the library 11 years ago in fiscal year 9. So revenue history, to put all of that into context as well, you can see an increase there and then pretty steady after that for several years. And the main driver here is the 10-year 28E agreements that we have with West Burlington, Middletown, and Des Moines County. So prior to fiscal year 12, we went each year on an annual basis to talk to them about how much there was going to be to contract with the library. The current agreements are really better, they better serve everyone, including the community members, because the users no longer have to wonder year to year, will they have services at the library? They know that that's something that's developed and moving forward. The consistency really helps to retain users then too. It also helps the governing entities that are involved. So, Middletown and West Burlington, Des Moines County, they all have a predictable cost over that 10 years. They know just what's coming down the road. Because the way it's set up is we set a base amount and then just a 1% gradual increase over those 10 years. So they have a predictable amount, and we also have a predictable revenue. So I think it really works well for everybody involved, and that's why you see that steady after that increase.
Is that changing back up in 21?
No, actually, fiscal year '22 is the last year of that agreement, but it is coming up soon. So it will be something it'll come faster than I think, I guess. It always seems like it does. So it won't be long before we'll need to be talking to them again about moving forward with the new agreement. So when you take the expenditures and the revenues, as we've just looked at, and put that together, you can determine the general fund impact. And so as we saw, the expenditures in the proposed budget are between fiscal year 8, fiscal year 9. So I'm using fiscal year 9 here because for the comparison, because it's the closest without going over, because this year is a little more than fiscal year 8 that we're asking for in this proposed budget. So you can see from this comparison that thanks to that increase in revenue that we've had, that fiscal year 20's budget has is significantly less of a general fund impact than it was 11 years ago. So, as Jim pointed out, the biggest drivers in pretty much all of our budgets, at least everybody's presented so far, is personnel. And so, as I mentioned earlier, this budget was made with no increase in staff. And for the last several years, we've been at this 16.9 FTE, so full-time equivalency, is what we've been budgeted at. And we're not changing anything with that in this proposal. So again, just to put that into historical perspective and get an idea of where we're at, you can see it's been very flat for some time now. I began working at the library in 02, as the head of reference services. And at that time, the library had just under 22 FTE. And so now that we're down to just under 17, you can see it's been a reduction of about 5 full-time equivalency. It's been more positions than that, but if you add them all up together, they are the equivalent of 5 full-time people that we no longer have. And given the increase in use, as we talk about in our annual report, you can clearly see we are doing more with less.
Rhonda, real quick, can I ask
Yeah,
you,
absolutely.
what positions were eliminated between the two?
Yeah, good question. So one of them I'll talk about later, a couple of them, but one was we had a maintenance staff, full-time maintenance person. We also, our office coordinator used to be a full-time position, it's half-time now. We used to have 8 full-time assistants, and now it's down to 6. And there's, I believe, some half-time positions in there too. We thankfully were able to do all of that through attrition. We had several retirements around the same time that we were looking at budget cuts. In fact, some of those retirements became before we had budget cuts, and we looked ahead and saw that that was going to be something coming, something we were going to need to be working on. So when we had 3 in 1 month. That's when we got rid of a part-time position and our full-time maintenance person and reduced our office coordinator to half-time in that one step.
Thank you.
Back in 2012. So some of this reduction and being able to kind of get by at this reduction is made possible by the new facility. I think I've probably talked about this some of you before, so just a little review of that. But all of our services are on one floor now, and that makes a big difference. In the old facility, we had to have 2 checkout desks, one down in the youth area, one upstairs. We don't need to do that anymore. When we did some budget cutting, one of the things that we did was reduce hours by 4 hours every week. We also stopped having someone at our youth desk on a regular basis. So just during the summer, during our summer reading program, we have someone there. But in terms of the facility, one of the other things that is affected is our reshelving of materials. Being all on one floor, we only have to have shelvers working in one space, not having somebody scheduled upstairs and downstairs. And if you remember, we no longer have to go up little narrow stairs and hand carry books up to that glass floor. It's beautiful, but it wasn't very efficient. So some of those efficiencies, along with the fact that we converted to RFID right before moving into the building, so every item in our collection now has RFID tags, and that makes checking out materials a lot faster. So that has really helped in that whole process.
I had a gentleman bring up to me that he said, he would love to see the hours be tweaked just a little bit more so that maybe you could have some evening hours where people that work 8 to 5 can get in and take advantage of the library. I just want to throw that in at you. I know you got a lot of stuff on your, going on, but
Right.
just, put that in the filing cabinet somewhere, my friend.
Yes, and I'm glad you brought that up. Just referring back to our strategic plan, one of the points in our strategic plan, I believe to look at in this year or so, is to look at adding a little time on Friday nights. It's sort of funny because people who've worked there for over 30 years, we've never been open anything but 9 to 5 on Fridays and all that time, but we always have somebody on Friday night who says, "Oh, I thought you're open later." So there's just that expectation or desire for that. That's what we hear a lot of is, people get off work on Friday and they don't have time to come over and use the library. And some people who work on Saturday then don't have time. So we are looking at that as an option. And
It
that
could be,
is
could become the new party spot on Friday nights in the library.
Right. Well, and I'll mention later, I think I mentioned in the annual report, we have our family nights now. We do those on Friday nights after
Yes.
hours.
Yep.
Last Friday, we had a trivia night that the Friends did to raise money for the library. So sometimes there's some stuff going on Friday nights, but just having regular hours on Friday night. Not all the way till 8, we're not looking at that, but just a little time for someone to swing by on their way home from work and be able to pick up something. So, I think both people who've presented before me made this comment as well. Our staff is our most valuable resource, and we are really lucky. All those efficiencies are great, but I think the fact that our staff is very dedicated to service, they're very creative, and they really believe in the power of libraries to help people be successful. That really makes a difference, and so I commend them for all the hard work that they do. They really are a lot of what makes this all possible. This next section here, I think you all saw something like this last year, so I won't spend a lot of time on it, but just to review and give you a little overview of the staff structure. Again, there's no changes in terms of numbers here, but I thought it would be good to go over that a little bit. Each time we do look at the budget with the library board, we look at staffing levels and have some discussions about where are some areas that we might need to be thinking about for the future. And one of those areas is our office coordinator. I think most people who've worked in organizations know that whether you call it administrative assistant, office coordinator, secretary, that role is really important to an organization. And that's the same with us. It used to be a full-time position, it's now half-time. Sarah does an amazing job. She's very organized and very efficient. But we are looking at that need in the future to move that position up from 20 hours a week, which is what it's at now, to 25 hours a week. It still keeps it as a part-time position, but it gives her a little more time to get stuff done. So that is one thing that we discussed this year and are looking at. The person who's in that position now has been with us for 6 years, so she's got a lot of good experience too. But I think just overall, it would be really helpful to have someone around more hours of the day. Because she handles a lot of the stuff along with me when it comes to vendors and things like that. I had somebody just yesterday ask me to find an invoice. I'm like, okay, she's organized, I think I can find this. But, she really has all that stuff at her fingertips and is better at all that. So we're really glad to have her. So a lot of what we do listed there. This afternoon when I was doing this, I'm always tweaking, and so I had to add troubleshooting because really that's what she and I spend a lot of our day doing is responding to whatever's going on and what problems there might need to be solved. So she's very good at helping me with that. So back to the strategic plan, as I mentioned, I'll use this a few times here, it'll show up in your packet multiple times, but goal 2 is that every child will have opportunities to succeed. And our youth services section, this is really at the heart of what they do. So we have 4.5 FTE, which is 6 people who work in that section. So in addition to selecting and maintaining the collections, which is, they take care of the toddler books through the tweens and the teens, all that space. Also, they take care of the furniture and all those things that go on there. They also spend a lot of time working on making opportunities for children from babies to teens and their families to have opportunities to learn. And I won't go through all these because I did a lot of that just a couple months ago. But just as a reminder, a lot of what they do now, because we've been putting more and more emphasis on going out into the community, is a lot of outreach. So several of those things you see on there are them going out to classrooms or preschools or places in the community where the kids are and the families are, rather than always trying to get people to come in and see us. We'll take those services out to them. As one I did get on here, but we have our bookmobile in the summers is a really good example of getting out and taking it to where people are. And we're just starting to plan for that already. It's nice to be thinking about summer, but one of the things that worked really well for us last year with the bookmobile was coordinating with Brad with the program at Perkins Park and bringing the bookmobile to the kids that are there for that day camp. So we'll continue to do that and look for other opportunities like that. This next section of staff is really focused on goal number 3, which has to do with technology, both access and education and training. This is that department that used to be 2. So when we were going through budget cuts, we had one of our section supervisors who left for another job. And so we decided at that time to help going forward, we would combine those 2. So it's a lot for one, for this group to deal with. Lois Blythe, though, who you met just a month or so ago when she was here to get her 30-year service award, she's the section supervisor here, and a lot of her work is troubleshooting because she takes care of all of the IT issues for us, both setting up new things and as well as doing that kind of troubleshooting when things are not working the way they should. So it's really essential that we have that kind of work. We don't use the IT department with the rest of the city. She takes care of all of that. She also then took on the collection development section, which is, as you'd see, selecting the materials, everything up through getting it onto the shelf and keeping it on the shelf and maintaining it. And so a lot of the people who work in that section, that's where their focus is, and she oversees that. Really essential section. Most of it happens behind the scenes, though. So their office is in the basement, just like me. And so a lot of times people think about all that work that has to go in to those things and how much technology powers everything that we do at the library. So anytime a server is down, the internet's down, we are always reminded of how much technology powers everything we do. So we're really happy to have that. We have 33 public computers. We have 15 mobile hotspots that we lend out. We have 7 catalog computers, 8 youth computers. We have checkout laptops. We have classroom laptops, and all the staff workstations. So it's a really big inventory of IT equipment that Lois manages. And as I say, then there's all the other work that goes into keeping the collection going. So, and making sure everything's available for the community to borrow. This next section is mostly a goal 1 kind of section here, particularly the parts, actually all of it, but particularly building awareness of our resources and services and increasing ease of use. So we'll talk a little bit more about the barriers part later in the presentation, but that does also something that this group works on. So community and customer service, this is the one that's always hard to put a name on because it does so many different things under one umbrella. But that's the name we're going with for now. We'll see if we ever change that. But this is a section that really everyone who works at the library, except for I'd say maybe our office coordinator, she doesn't do as much with this, but everybody, including myself, ends up working at a public service point at some time. Even if I'm just passing through or coming up to ask a question, I'll stop and check things out for people. So, or answer a question at the help desk or pick up the phone.
Yes, you will.
Yeah.
God bless you. Yes, you will.
Sometimes people are a little surprised that it's me, but we all pitch in on this. We're all cross-trained to be able to work at the service points. The people who are assigned to this section really focus on, they do a lot of those kind of things too, but they focus on things like our interlibrary loan or our homebound delivery to the seniors in the community, doing the marketing, developing classes for adults. So all of those kind of functions happen from this group. And doing that outreach, I know the Yonkers sign there, so you can tell it's a little bit older picture, but going out to things like that was the senior fair that happened out in the mall. So that's all the summary of the personnel. Everything else that's left in the budget, I lump as operating expenditures for us. I know on the budget sheet it calls it contractual services and commodities, but it's all the non-personnel operating expenses. This, as you can see from this historical perspective here, this took a sharp decline also when we had some budget cuts, and then has kind of been stable for the last few years, little bitty ups and downs. In fact, I looked in fiscal year 18 to fiscal year 19, it went down by like 4%. In fiscal year 20, we're looking at going back up by 4%, so we're right about back at fiscal year 18 level for these combined expenses. It's kind of a hodgepodge of a lot of different things, but I'll do a little summary of that as well. Our collection materials, as Jim mentioned, that's one of our commodities, is that we purchase these materials for community members to borrow. Clearly, it's been heavily impacted by the budget cuts that we've had. The pie chart does show you a little breakdown of how we use those funds for the proposed fiscal year 20. I didn't get down into all the details of print versus non-print and all of that, but youth materials, adult materials of all types, online tools, we offer a lot of things that people can do 24/7 through our website, and those are some of the expenses for offering those kind of things. The subscriptions are magazines and newspapers, and that's gone down significantly in the last 2 years because of a gift that we have now through the Community Foundation, the Des Moines County Community Foundation. The Mickelson Fund designated, I think 3, maybe 4 different organizations in the community. And we were lucky enough to be one of them. He used the library on a regular basis, and reading the magazines and newspapers was what he came for. He would sit over by the big window, and read the newspapers from different parts of the country. And so we decided that the best place to apply those funds each year, because we will be getting something each year from that fund, is to the subscriptions to those magazines and newspapers. So if you ever over and read a newspaper off of our rack, there's a sign saying that it's funded by that memorial. So really fortunate to have that. Like I say, that did bring about that decrease over the last few years.
Now, Rhonda, the part where it says online tools, is
Yeah.
that where you budget for computers and stuff?
No, it's
good,
more like
'cause
the
I was thinking you have a-
subscriptions.
okay.
Yeah, so we offer ebooks,
Okay.
e-audio, the magazines, the music, all those kind of things, but also the research tools like the genealogy tools that we have, and then we have, we've got a language tool. We have several different things that you can do on the online, and one of those is about to change, but it's our free one. The state of Iowa has been funding Learning Express for the last few years, and we just got word that at the end of this month, they put it out to bid, and they're changing over to BrainFuse. So we'll be getting out information about that and the difference, but both of those are tools that people can use to do practice tests. So a lot of occupational tests, but also things like, the ACT practice tests
Okay.
and SAT, those kind of things. But the purpose of the funding, because they get it through Workforce or another agency, and it's to help people with job skills. So there's a lot of that in there. So I'm looking forward to getting to know BrainFuse, but that'll be changing here soon. But as I said, that one, all the libraries in the state get it no charge through the state of Iowa. so it doesn't show up in here. The rest, everything that's left after you take those two things that we've talked about so far, falls under sort of facilities, technology, and training. And so this chart just gives you a little sense of how that breaks down into the different pies here. The largest piece of the pie there towards the bottom is utilities. We have been working diligently to reduce this area for years. Several years ago, we did a retro commissioning project, and with that project, we did this through Alliant. They had another company come in, and we did some upgrading to our HVAC system, some insulation. I know it's a pretty new building, but they found some places that could use some insulation upgrades and some other changes too. We also did a couple of lighting conversions in the past, those big bowl lights if you're in there. We changed those out to higher efficiency, as well as all those sconces that are on the poles inside and outside of the building to improve efficiency there. We also, I think it's about every 3 years, we become eligible for Alliant to come back and just look over everything and tell us if there's more stuff we could be doing, and we take advantage of that every time we can. Last year, we're really excited about this project being done now. We just finished up in the last month or so. The Library Foundation helped support us so that we could do LED conversion for all the remaining lights. And you know, I never realized just how many light bulbs we had. They were counting all of them. It's amazing how many light bulbs are in the building. The only lights we haven't done at this point are the parking lot lights, and that's our next project. In fact, I just talking to someone today about it. So we anticipate that coming up in this calendar year. We also, anticipate then the utilities reducing, which should be great. We are on demand billing, and I won't go into, Jerry's actually kind of a demand billing expert now, but the way that works, it'll be about a year before we really see the full impact of this conversion project, because they needs to go through another cycle where they set the demand and everything like that. So I expect us to see more savings as we go forward. We did not change in the budget how much we have allocated for lighting, because we're not sure what that's going to be. But the board did ask me to do some comparisons. The bulk of the project had finished up by November. And I went back and looked, and we were having, in some months there, savings as much as 20% in terms of usage. So I am hopeful that that's going to really have a big impact, and we're really fortunate that we have the Library Foundation willing to take care of the expense of making that happen. So that's been great, and I say, and I'm looking forward to doing the parking lot lights next. Another large piece of the puzzle there is technology expenses. This is primarily IT support. So when things go wrong, and Lois does her best, she's got someone she can call in. So there's some of that, calling in people to help when there's problems, but also software. The software tool that we use to catalog, check out all the different kind of library functions that we do, it's called our integrated library system. That's the biggest piece of this section, keeping that going. And we did, in the last year, we went out, looked at other systems, and got bids on those, worked with our current company, and I think maybe because we were going out and getting bids, they gave us a really good deal. So they did lower the price a little bit. So that's been good. I'm glad we went through that process to see what's out there, where things could be better, and they also helped us work on our system to make some things better and some enhancements. So really, we're happy about that. Converting to a new system is a huge project. And so you have to keep that in mind too in terms of moving, and we tried to do that it would be a lot of upheaval to go through it, so it's got to be worth it. And they helped make it worth it for us to stay with them. So that's good. In recent years, our hardware replacement, like you were asking about, in terms of computers, equipment, the Library Foundation has been the one to fund that. Another one that's a bigger one up there is repairs and preventative maintenance, as well as property maintenance charges. Those are kind of the next two bigger pieces. The building reaches its 13th birthday this year, and we are starting to see some equipment, actually HVAC kind of equipment. We've had to replace a motor with the boiler, you know, just different things that come up with age over time. So that is one that I don't necessarily think is going to be reducing. But we have a lot of preventative maintenance agreements that I think have really helped us stay on top of those things and keep things in good working order. So our HVAC system, the control system, our sprinkler system, and our alarm system, the elevator, we get regular water testing because we have a geothermal system. We also contract for our snow removal, and that is part of that. We're really happy to have all the skills of the property maintenance team to turn to when we have issues. I was talking to Scott over at the library today, and so you know we're happy with that situation. But again, the library board, we look every time we look at the budget. We looked the last year, we looked again this year to see if going back to full-time maintenance made sense. When you look at the different pieces like the janitorial, which is another one up there, we contract out for janitorial services. But when you put property maintenance charges that we get and the janitorial services together, it's still a better, more cost-efficient method for us to be doing this. And I think I've said in the past, one of the nice things is property maintenance team is multiple people with multiple talents. And so, you know, if we call up and need some plumbing, we'll probably see Will. And, you know, so we know there's multiple people to call upon, and that's worked really well. So we're really pleased we're able to continue to work with them. A very small sliver in there is training for staff. That's one that has decreased over the years. It moved it up just a little bit this year in the proposal because it's small in size, but it's really important that the staff stays up on technology training and just all the other things that we do. And coming back, you know, just getting ideas. A lot of what we do now are webinars online, so, you know, there's usually not any cost involved. You don't have to travel. So that's helped too to keep that cost down and still get a lot of people who are getting training. We do a lot of cross-training. We do a lot of training each other. We have a staff development day every year, and we just had that in December. And except for one person in the community we brought in to talk to us about one product he uses a lot that we offer to get his expertise on it. Everything else we were teaching each other things, so we were learning from other people's areas of expertise. The other thing that I don't think I mentioned during the annual report that I should have is that there's now a public library support position certification through the state. There's also, there's one for directors, and I've always had that certification, and our supervisors have had to have that as part of their job. But now over half of our other staff members have done that certification. So it's something they do online. There's not a charge involved in it, but they will continue to get CE credits to keep up their certification. And thankfully, we found out our staff training day counts. So we were able to get them some CE units that day. And so there's a lot we can do at low cost. But I think it is so important to have that training available for staff so they can keep up their skills and kind of get to know other things that we could be doing or ways to improve what we already do. So I just wanted to go back to the strategic plan for a moment just to point out that goal 4 about efficiency and streamlining of services, that included the LED conversion project we just completed. So we're glad to have that as one of our activities marked off on that strategic plan. It also has us looking for ways to improve and upgrade our self-service stations. So we have self-checkout stations at the library. And that's something that the Library Foundation is prepared to fund and has agreed to do. So we're working on that project right now, seeing what's available out there and what's going to work best for us. So we hope to have that be something we'll come back and tell you about at some point. I also just wanted to talk a little bit about, you know, this chart. I said I wasn't going to do a whole lot on use, but I did want to use this as one example of the big change in use that we've seen for the library and the impact that has on facility expenses. We want to keep our meeting rooms looking good, serving the community. A lot of people are using them. It was interesting how we kind of, you know, you can tell when we moved to the new building and went from one room that was hard to access up on the second floor, to multiple rooms of various sizes available. But we kind of plateaued, and then we jumped again, and I think it's because a lot of people are using our smaller rooms more, and are discovering those to use for groups or just individually.
So,
Yeah,
So what are we making on the meeting rooms?
we actually, we don't charge for the meeting rooms. We
Right.
we have one group that gave us $1,000 donation this year, and we have other groups that give us donations. So I'll talk a little bit about the trust and agency accounts as we go forward, but we do have we have some money designated for meeting room expenses, and we did send out a letter to all the users doing a donation request as well, so we do.
have you considered just a small, minimal fee to, because these are getting used a lot more, and I can see why, because you can get one for free.
Right.
And not that I think, not trying to poo-poo on that, I think that's great that you're trying to give easy access, but that being said, the more people that are using them, that does generate some expense, and can we find a way to maybe, with a minimal fee, to have this turn into being a small blessing? It obviously is to the, I mean, if I could get one of those rooms, by goodness, I'm coming down to see you. But
Right.
but I wouldn't have any problem being able to, to rent, to pay, $5 or $10 or something, to reserve one, I wouldn't have any issue with that. I feel like, I just feel like that's a missed opportunity. Again, I'm just throwing that out there at you, Ms.
Yeah, I
Librarian.
appreciate
Okay.
that.
Rhonda, I just follow up to that. Any idea what percentage of these meetings are corporate meetings and what percentage of them are just a couple high school kids putting together a high school project?
Right, and that's one of the things when we've looked at this issue before, because it has come up as a question, that's when we started doing more sort of requesting that people make a donation. Because a lot of them are groups that are just individuals, like the smaller rooms, just an individual coming in and working on a project, or, a couple people working together. I think today the Shakespeare Club was meeting at the library. I think if we charge, they'd probably just start meeting in their homes again, or, some of those things. The businesses are very few. Mostly because our policy is you can't use the rooms to make money. So you can't have a sales pitch at the library. You can't, not only can you not just like literally be selling things in the room, you can't be soliciting for future sales, is I think how we say it in the policy. So you can't, we had this come up, you can't do a class on essential oils if you sell essential oils, because that's really soliciting for future sales. So we try to keep a really close eye on that, so that we don't allow that kind of use. Some organizations, like I know Young House uses it for trainings. So we do have some groups, obviously they're a nonprofit organization.
Do you have like a large use for like depositions or interrogatories or anything like
We've
that?
had a couple times we've had attorneys use the rooms. I remember way back in '08 with the flood, somebody was out of their office, I can't remember who it was, but they came down and used the rooms for a while they weren't able to. Every once in a while that comes up. And we do have a couple of organizations that do job interviews there. So that would be an organization that's a business use. So.
It's too bad the coffee shop wasn't still open.
Right.
And if it was a large group that was wanting to bring food in, because I know you
Right.
allow food to come in, and say, oh, can use our room for free.
Yes.
Just have to cater from our
Right.
coffee shop, but
Right.
Set
fortunately
up
it's
a
not
piano,
running.
get the piano man down there playing a little music.
Yeah.
We do
people
have a
walking-
keyboard at the library. Jerry has played for events before. And I'm glad you brought up the coffee shop and give you a little update on that. The library board has been looking at that, different possibilities. We've really just decided that the coffee shop has not taken hold there. And I mean, it was great. I think I've said this before. I think it was a sort of an incubator for the business that's now downtown, that Tastefully Yours, because Hope Haven had never done food like that, and they did it at the library small for a while, and then they got another space, they moved there. So that's wonderful. I'm glad that worked out. But I think for an individual just trying to, like pay their bills and run out of there, that hasn't worked in the past. So we're looking at different options. They're down to 2 options right now. So we're hoping in the next month or so, they'll be deciding which way we want to go. And I will say one option is to use it as a meeting room space, bring in maybe some more vending. So, there's some things we'd like to do with that too. It's a good space for kind of, I always say getting dirty kind of projects. It doesn't sound quite right. But because it's gonna be a tile floor, we are gonna be redoing the floor a little bit. But, when we have kids doing art projects, that's a good space rather than the carpeted, more business-like rooms we have across the hall. So, yeah.
I'm just gonna throw out there again, you don't have to have physical people serving coffee. I'm drinking some of the crap from the coffee machines, in
Right.
the hospitals, and, when you need a cup, it hits
Right.
the spot.
We are looking at that as a possibility.
Throwing that out there.
Yeah. So we have, I guess just going back to meeting rooms, we have talked about, carpet replacement maybe coming down the road. Now we're at 13 years, I was hoping to make it to 15 years. But with over 600 people coming into the library every day, on average, that's a lot of wear and tear there. So, we're probably getting to that point soon, particularly the meeting rooms because they get a lot of use, but just the entryway as well too. One other major part of what we do are offering classes and events. So you can see fiscal year 18 statistics there, and I think it's last year's. Well, there are no funds in the budget. You won't see a line item in there for presenter fees, supplies, the snacks, all those things that we do with our classes and events. And there's no line item for our summer reading program either. So instead, we go out and raise funds for the summer reading program. So in the next week or so, if you have a business, you might be getting a letter from us because we'll be starting up that campaign again. And one of the things we've been working on this year, and I've been seeing each month as we look at statistics, we're having fewer classes and events, but larger participation. That's sort of what we're wanting to do, is to focus on getting more people to events that we're already having, not necessarily raising the number of events. We're also, these figures are both the in-house and the outreach kind of thing. So going to people is a good way to reach more people than trying to get them to come to us, because transportation isn't always easy for people. So with no funds in the budget for that, I say we go out and do letters to raise funds for summer reading events and the prizes that we give out. But we also are extremely fortunate to have a very strong Friends of the Library group. Just last Friday, they had the trivia night to raise funds for the library, and next week, they have their first book sale of the year. So they do multiple book sales each year to raise funds, and all of the funds that they raise, I then go to their meeting and ask, would you cover this speaker fee or pay for snacks at story time or things like that. So pretty much anytime you come to an event at the library, the Friends of the Library are probably supporting it in some way. Or the Ticos teens. They've pretty much taken it on themselves now to raise funds for their own programs. So through putting out flags with the Optimus Avenue of Flags project, they do that multiple times a year. And they also came up with our vending machine that we currently have, and so all the funds we get from that go to them. And they've done some other special fundraisers too. So they're a great group. We're really fortunate to have them. And we're really fortunate to have community members that support the Friends of the Library by donating used books, coming and buying books, going to the footnote shop. I could have put a picture of that up here too. That's every day you can go and support the library there. And then also all the volunteers that make all that happen. So we're happy to have that. And I can never say enough how happy we are to have that. Now, in terms of capital outlay, I think last year I just gave you a blank slide for this because there's nothing there. I thought this year I'd change it up a little bit and give you a little historical perspective. So there have been years where we had capital funds in the budget, and at that time it was primarily for, particularly those last couple years, I know was for purchasing computers, replacements. So, and as I said before, the Library Foundation has picked up support for replacing that equipment. So we're fortunate to have that. So that helps make my presentation a little bit shorter because I don't have to go through all the different things in the capital improvement plan. So we'll move on to Almost done, as you can tell from your hand out there. So one of the things I did want to just take a moment to talk about is the community support and the involvement in the community. So just to remind you of the really strong volunteer support that we have. These are our fiscal year 18 numbers. Most of that volunteer time is our friends at the library and doing the book sales, doing footnotes, some of those things. And our TCOS teens, as well as the teens that volunteer with us in the summer. But also our board members are volunteers, and so are the foundation board members and the Friends board members. So those all are counted in here as well. And we have volunteers who help with special projects. I have someone who has been with us for several years who just last week helped fix one of our wooden chairs broke. And so I didn't have to call property maintenance. He took care of it for us. So he helps with some projects like that. We have another person who's organizing our sheet music collection. So some of those things that we wouldn't be able to do, we have some volunteers who will come in and help with that.
Bless 'em.
Our Babies Need Books program, we wrap books to send, and we had a volunteer in this morning who wraps those books, and we'll be delivering some more tomorrow. I understand they're gonna have 60-some babies expected this month, so they needed some more books. But every family that has a baby at the hospital gets a book, so,
Hey, Rhonda, I'm gonna put you on the spot here for a second.
yeah.
How much, I know that the Rotary has a big program with the library, but can you just touch real quick and tell me how much of an impact the service organizations have on the library and
Yes.
the books for babies and books that go into the schools?
I'm glad you asked. That's sort of my next chunk here.
Oh,
I was going
okay.
to talk
Sorry.
about. So, no, I appreciate you bringing that up. So, in the section about community partners, I was going to mention that we have several organizations that we partner with. The school district, we do things with them. They come to us. Des Moines County Conservation Department has helped with us, and we look for lots of groups like that. But we also, the library staff is involved in different service clubs. And my example that I was going to give was the Babies Need Books, because Rotary funds that. So they pay for those books. And so that project wouldn't be possible without that funding, because we do need funds to buy those books for all of those children. We have some other groups. There's I think it's a retired teachers group that also helps support that by coming in, and they will often do some of the wrapping or give some funds to it. Altrusa Club does all of the delivery of our homebound delivery for us. So that's huge. We put the bags together and they take care of the running around and doing that. The Lions Club has partnered with us and came, I think just last summer when we had some story times, they came and did the eye tests that they do. So we've worked with a lot of the different groups. I should bring up Kiwanis as well. I don't want to leave anyone out. Kiwanis also has given us money over the years, and they, just like Rotary, every month donate a book to the library. And the names of the speakers for that month go in the book. So yeah, we reach out to all of those, and we try to have someone in the staff who participates in all of those, because it's a great way to meet people in the community, get to know what's going on in the community, so, and to help get that support as well. I also wanted to mention, I guess in terms of community involvement, besides being involved in service clubs, doing the outreach kind of things, and the community partners, we also have staff who get involved in community events like Thanksgiving dinner, the Mayor's Volunteer Awards. We're meeting again this week, working towards that, the Mayor's Volunteer Awards, so that'll be coming up in April. In terms of grants, we do always try to keep a lookout for those. One that's been pretty consistent is we've been working with the Murray Foundation for several years now. They've given us funding for our preschool outreach. The Fine Arts League also has pretty consistently given us funding for art supplies and books on art and those kind of things. Just another way that when we have those kids events, that those supplies are covered. So we don't have to go to the Friends for everything with that. We need to get other things as well. And then I know on, I think the first night we talked, Jim was talking about budgets. He mentioned trust and agency funds, and he said the library is one of the bigger ones. So I thought, well, that's a good cue for me to actually mention that a little bit for you. So I will, so I wanted to just mention, all of the funds that the Friends of the Library give and the foundation give go through that. So when they donate, it goes into the trust and agency fund that we have, and it comes out from there. So like when they paid for the LED project, it went in there and we paid for it out of there. So that's part of why tends to be bigger, because they give us quite a bit each year, those two groups. But on a smaller scale, individuals will give us funds and specify it for things, particularly like memorials. We just had some funds that were donated that were quite specific. They wanted nonfiction large type books. So sometimes it's really specific, sometimes it's not as specific as that, but generally those memorials people give for books that we'll put book plates in with the person's name on it. Occasionally it's been things like we did a shelving unit in one case for the memorial. So those are the kind of funds that go in there. The summer reading program, as we receive funds for that, they go into that and then we spend out of that too. So that's what those are about. I just wanted to explain a little bit about those and that kind of support that we get. So I want to just briefly here at the end go back to that goal 1 and reducing barriers to access. We are doing some things right now for that, and all year we are looking at having different things roll out to help with that. So I mentioned, we go out to people because transportation can be a barrier. One of the other barriers can be for people who maybe they forgot they had something out, but they've had it out for a long time. And in some cases, people decide just not to bring it back because they know there's going to be a huge fee, and they're not going to be able to use the library. They can't pay that fee, whatever it might be. And so this month, we're doing our Fresh Start program. It's a one-time deal this month. If people bring back overdue, lost kind of items, and for us, lost means it's been out for quite a while, then we'll waive the fees for them and work with them on any other fees that are on their account to get them onto a payment plan, which is something we've been offering for a while. Now, so we'll look over their account. We're offering free replacement cards this month for maybe if you just lost your card and you need to get set up again. So we'll update their account with new information. And we also will talk to people about what do we offer at the library, because if you haven't been in for a few years, there's a lot of new stuff, and there always is. So we can talk to them about what's available, give them a calendar. So our goal here is to get people back using the library that maybe stopped because they had a fee or they had an item that was out, and they can bring that back now. They need to bring it up to the service desk and talk to a staff member to qualify for this. But we really want to talk to people, and we're excited to get people back. So nothing to be intimidated about coming up and talking to us. We're also continuing to offer our Read Off the Fines program. We started last year on Monday when there's no school for Burlington. We'll offer that program again. And so far with the Fresh Start program, we've had quite a few people come up and take advantage of it. There's been an article in the paper, it's been on the radio. We've had things in our publications as well. Just today we had a mom who was tearful as she was able to get her card going again and then sign up her 3 kids. So it really does make a difference. We had another woman who hadn't had a card for many years, hadn't been able to borrow. She was able to get her fees reduced, paid off the remaining amount, and now she's able to check out again. So, we're wanting to also get those materials back so we can get them into circulation again for the rest of the community. So we're looking at both things as a goal, getting people back and getting materials back. And then also being able to promote things to people. So there have been several success stories with this now, and it's just for the month of January. We have no intention of offering this again. So it's not something we're going to do every January. But in February, we have another program that we're looking to do. We're already talking about what we're going to do in March. So we want to really continue to reduce those barriers and help people have access or return or come see us for the first time.
So the replacement cards are free in
free.
January? I'll
Yep.
see you then.
I know.
I think they're gonna change the name of our town now. We're gonna be known as the city with the library that gives second chances.
Fresh Start Library.
I like that.
Fresh Start.
And I'm actually, I have to write my column for the newspaper tonight, being on Friday. Because Craig would really like to have it tomorrow morning. So, I'm going to be writing about this program, and other libraries in the area, Keokuk has done some things like this. They actually did something where if you gave blood, they would reduce your fee. And we do have blood drives at the library, but I don't know.
Blood?
It just felt a little, I don't know, it just felt a little too much for me.
Yeah.
But they've done other other programs like that too, so I'll, include that in the information.
What?
Some do a food for fines, where you
Sure.
donate foods, different things like that too, that are out there. So, as we work to fulfill our mission and work on our
Stuff's real
strategic
and
plan, it's all really focused on making Burlington a great
bring that
place to
cover.
live, work, and play. So, thank you for your support of library services for our community. And, one more. If you have any more questions, I'm happy to answer those.
Council, quest away.
I have a question for you,
Okay.
and that is, the difference between the commodities that were bought in 2012 versus now. There was about $140,000 difference, right? What were the things that aren't being purchased today that were being purchased then?
I think one of the biggest things you saw was the materials for the collection. So we purchased fewer materials than we did at that time. We do have those memorial gifts that we get, so we do purchase more than just what's in the budget. So we're really happy to be able to have that. We have a wish list on our website. Some people go on and buy things and send, so we look at other ways to keep making the collection fresh and getting things that people need. So, so we do continue to purchase for the collection, but pretty much everything in the collection shrunk a little bit in terms of new things that we add. The other parts of it, I said we've reduced our training. We reduced a lot of things. We don't have an advertising line anymore. We used to do some advertising. Trying to think of other things that we cut. It's been so long now without them. I'm like trying to remember
Sure,
what
yeah.
some of those things were. But they're, in terms of supplies, janitorial, just different stuff like that. We really looked at every single line and cut back every place that we could. But I think collections is one of the biggest areas.
Well, no, my question has to deal with your goal with accessibility.
Yes.
I get asked time and time again, can the library ever be open on Sunday? And I know your staff is like, no! But it would be so nice, even if it was for a few hours, like 1 to
Right.
3 on a Sunday afternoon. And a few hours on the evening, I think, would be phenomenal. And you can ask your husband. Most people do 50% of their shopping after hours, so I'm sure when they're looking for resources, books and tapes and video, they're looking after, typical work hours as well. So that's the question I had. And then you said you're going out into the community quite a bit more. Is there a lot of extra gasoline involved in pulling that bookmobile?
No,
Not
really.
really? Okay.
We're fortunate because the school gives us the vehicle to use.
Okay.
And so we go out once a week, the way it is right now. So it hasn't been much of an expense,
Okay.
additional expense for the gas for that. I haven't
Okay.
seen that
Okay.
be an issue. But yeah, we, in our strategic plan, we do talk about how great it would be to have our own bookmobile someday. But right now, it's just wonderful that the school lets us borrow that, and they had it decorated and everything. So it's a nice tool to have available, and that Public Works lets us keep it out there in the summer, so it
Okay.
has a home.
That's nice.
Because it really wouldn't work well in our parking lot. So.
Rhonda, do we offer any kind of platform that allows people to check out books via the website and then have them shipped to them?
Oh, no.
I lived in a
Yeah.
community once where if a library, you would go on and you could look up a book or a movie, and they for a fee,
Right.
you would pay the postage and the service fee, but they would mail it to you, and then when you were done, you just took it and put it in the box, which was a 24-hour box.
Red box books.
Right, yeah, I've heard of some libraries that offer some mail delivery services. We, right now, the only thing that we offer similar to that is if you're on our homebound list, and we'll bring things to you.
Yeah.
But I'll take a look and see who's doing that in Iowa and kind of find out some more about.
I
How they
love
do
that idea.
Well, like I
Because
said,
personally, they are always doing wonderful things for me at the library, getting interlibrary loans and books, and the problem is my hours to get down there to pick up the material. So if you could order it for me from, a library in Wisconsin or whatever and ship it to my house, man, that would be fantastic.
There's
Love that
actually
idea.
some libraries that are offering book vending machines now, where they'll have it outside the library at a different location, like a Hy-Vee or something, and your holds would go there if you requested it, and then you pick it up there. That's probably way more of expense than we're gonna get into anytime soon,
Yeah.
but there are a lot of different interesting programs out there that libraries are doing, so, yeah, we'll take take a look. We always like to learn from others and emulate them, steal their ideas, but,
There you go.
yeah,
Are the good ones?
well,
Any other questions?
Yeah, the only observation I had was his suggestion, Shane's suggestion about maybe a nominal fee, like $5 or something like that. I mean, I think there's a lot of groups you wouldn't have a charge for, but that is something worthwhile looking into, because let's say you charge $5 for the 5693, it's 28 grand a year, that helps pay for some carpet. So we probably need to look at doing something along that lines, but I think it would have to be real light to start. But other than that, you're doing more with less, so how can we complain? So thank you.
oh, thank you.
I could find something to complain about, but I'm not going to. I just have one last thing.
Sure,
Is Steve Main to you? We'll talk about it later.
okay, all right.
Are you guys good?
Yeah,
We're good.
Thank you,
Good.
Ron.
thank you.
Good job. James?
All right, Rob.
I don't have anything to add on that.
All right, done one.
Done.
Don Juan.
54 slides? 54?
A lot of those are blank, right, Don?
It causes trouble, James.
We're gonna go through them quick, right? I got them set up, they automatically turn one per minute.
Is that what it is? Is there a lot of pictures, Don?
I sound like the laziest person in the world that can't drive to the library. Sometimes, it closes early, it's difficult to get there.
I used to work, we wouldn't get off till 7. So, and it was easy because they always sent it in a package. So it was like a bag that would open and you take the item out and use it, but you put it back in, and when you took it back to the
Do you have a timer?
you sent it
Done.
back in the same bag that it came in.
Done.
So then they were constantly recycling the
Done.
shipping material.
What?
Makes sense.
Using a
I mean,
timer?
I would read more books. That's what we can.
Yes, let's do it.
You just had to pay the.
But I would do it.
Don's busy man.
That's what Netflix is based off of.
You know what?
Yes?
I'm wondering,
Do you want me to
can I rely on you?
to tab through the slides? Yes, I can do that
way I
for
can
you.
Make sure you're awake.
James, don't let him down.
I guess I can't
This
go
is
down and check
important.
my email then, huh?
This is important stuff, James. I hope you don't blow this.
Thank you, sir.
Computer shut.
Stephanie, he may need help. Your trash wasn't picked up today?
Yeah, it's Don. Oh, it's got a little note section there for me. Outstanding.
Thank you, sir. You can leave me these too. I'll make sure they get in the box.
What?
She's supposed to be here just a minute late.
Does the library ever close if the weather's bad? Does the library
Slide
ever
two.
close if the weather's bad?
Is it snowing? Is it doing anything outside?
No.
I have a program Thursday.
Yeah.
Charging 8 feet.
Let's see, how does this thing work?
You know what? You know good and well how it works. You've been working it for years. Come on. How does this thing
What
work?
time should I set it for? 24 minutes?
Why is this saying that?
I'll set it for 20.
I don't know. What'd you do?
This shouldn't take long. We already gave Don the scrubber. This shouldn't take
Rich
long.
Joe said I had to shut down.
got the
so
scrubber
I
and
didn't know that
detergent.
everything's coming up.
Okay, we're gonna start with the wastewater treatment facility. All right. Okay, so there's a picture of the wastewater treatment facility. Next slide. Wastewater treatment facility, our span of responsibilities are to operate and maintain the treatment plant. There's 15 lift stations or pumping stations scattered throughout the city. We take care of those. We monitor and we manage the operation of the equalization tanks, which are on the Hawkeye system. We have a laboratory. We do sampling within the facility, and we also do sampling out on the collection system in dealing with some of our industries. We do the industrial pretreatment program, which is a federally required program. And we also handle the processed solids, the byproduct of wastewater treatment. We dewater those solids and we land apply them, and they're commonly referred to nowadays as biosolids. Next slide. The wastewater treatment plant currently is designed due to the 2012 improvements to handle up to 20.8 million gallons per day peak flow rate. The average wet weather throughout a 365-day period could be as much as 10.85 million gallons a day. In the fiscal year 17-18, we actually had a period where we were bringing in 21.3 million gallons a day. The maximum 24-hour flow we handled in the plant in 17-18 was 13.8 million gallons. 3.1 million gallons was the minimum amount of water we handled. You note the difference between 3.1 and 21.3. That is the result of having a combined sewer system and having a system that has a lot of leaks and such. If we didn't have the leaks that we have, we could be down around 3.1 million gallons or thereabouts on a regular basis. The average flow over that 17-18 divided by 365 days was 4.8 million gallons per day. Next slide. The current design for the amount of organic material coming into the plant due to the 2012 improvements is 9,100 pounds of biochemical oxygen demand. And in 17-18, we actually were averaging 5,400 pounds a day during that particular fiscal year. Next slide. Where do we get our money? We get our money from the sewer fees that are on the water bill. That's our sole source of water our money that we have to operate the facility. Those fees are also used to help pay for the sewer department, which is handled out of the Public Works facility. So we split the funds between us. Next slide. The expenditures, how do we spend the money that we get? The budget is divided into two components. First, we have the 5401 series, which is for the administration. And in the 5401 series of the budget, we have, in the 400 series, we have two full-time people, myself and my office coordinator. Another line item within the 5401 that may be of interest is the contractual services, that the 500 series. 529 is the billing services that the water department charges us for billing for sewer fees. And of the total bill that comes to the city from the water department, 2/3 of it is paid from the 5401 529 line item in our budget. Also in that 500 series, we have a 581 payment to the West Burlington for sewers. There are a few properties that are in the city of Burlington who actually are sewered and goes to West Burlington, and they bill us either on a monthly or quarterly basis, but we do have fees that are paid to them. Next slide. Expenditures also that come out of the 5401, the administration, are the 900 series. And I think the city manager could better describe to you or explain to you where those numbers or what those numbers pertain to.
So for like your debt service transfers, we transfer to the debt service fund where all of our general obligation debt is paid for out of. We have two bond issues that incorporate a portion of sewer projects that were funded with GO bonds. So we have the 500 or the 496,000 that you see there is used to make the payments in the debt service fund that are associated with sewer projects funded there. We have done several other bond issues for the sewer department. Those are funded in the 5,000 series. Don doesn't necessarily cover them, but those are revenue bonds or state revolving fund payments. And the way state statutes are in regards to how we have to do budgets, it becomes really complicated. Those that are funded with straightly out of revenue bonds or the SRF, the revolving loan fund, can be paid for out of the sewer fund, but the others we have to do a transfer over. So that's where that's going to. The administrative transfer of $300,000, we essentially are moving that into a separate sewer account. It's a miscellaneous sewer rehab for just general projects that might come up. If we have a line that busts that needs to be taken care of. An example would be providing sewer service down to the depot, and we had a line that needed to be replaced. It helped to pay for that. And it falls and tends to be projects that we don't have planned ahead of time, but fall under Nick's crew as they're doing projects throughout the system. The final expense transfer, the $708,000, goes to the general fund, cover administrative support, operate as just essentially to cover what's provided from the general fund for support services for the operation of the sewer plant, for HR, for accounting, administrative oversight, et cetera.
Okay, next slide. So that's the 5401 portion of the budget for the wastewater facility. The other portion is the 5402 for operations and maintenance. That covers the facility itself, the plant operations and maintenance, the lift stations that are scattered throughout the city to pump the wastewater through the collection system to the plant, and also the 2 equalization tanks that currently exist on the Hawkeye sewer system. The 400 series of the 5402 pertains to personnel. We have 15 full-time persons at the wastewater plant, and we have 1 part-time person. We have 6 plant operators. We're a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week operation. We have 1 maintenance supervisor. We have 6 maintenance personnel. 2 of them, what we refer to as our moms, our maintenance and operations mechanics. We have 2 wastewater treatment facility maintenance mechanics, and we have 2 electricians. We have a lab supervisor / pre-treatment coordinator that oversees the lab operations and also deals with our industries that are part of our industrial pre-treatment program. We have 1 full-time lab tech and 1 part-time. Next slide, please. In 500 series, the contractual series services of our budget, one of the line items is 511 consulting professional services. We do send out work for private labs to do work for us. We primarily work with the University of Iowa. That also contains a fee for the audit that is done, that they charge the wastewater facility for a portion of the audit cost. 519, other professional services. There's a $10,000 in there for as needed. You may notice that last year's figure was had a $200,000 amount in there. That was for about approximately 50% of the estimated $400,000 that we were paying an engineer to do the sewer master plan. That plan, for all practical purposes, is completed or very close to being completed, and so there was no need to have that money in for this upcoming fiscal year, so that's why that dollar amount is down by so much. Next slide, please. Continuing on the expenditures, a big line item in the 5402 series is, of course, the light and power, 543. That covers the power at the plant, at the lift stations. That WW stands for wastewater, and ultimately when the stormwater lift stations are built on the riverfront associated with flood mitigation, I'm sure that we'll be the ones that will be operating and maintaining, and the electricity will come out of that as well. And then also we have some small costs pertaining to the equalization tanks on electricity. Next slide. Our 600 series are our commodities. 622 is a large line item in our budget for chemicals for various purposes. We have a collection system. We use fats, oil, and grease treatment and odor treatment chemicals in our collection system to get away from having problems in the collection system with grease blockages. We also have to use polymers for conditioning and dewater our biosolids, the byproduct of wastewater treatment. Disinfection of treated wastewater, we still use chlorine. A lot of places have moved away from chlorine out of the concerns for the use of that chemical. And then we also purchase our lab chemicals out of 622. Next slide, please.
What's the price difference if we got away from the chlorine? Just curious.
Actually, if we were to start from scratch, if we did not have the process tanks that we have now for chlorine, and we were to start from scratch, we could put in infrared treatment for about the same cost. But it's a very, very expensive process that uses a lot of electricity. And it also requires the quality of water to maintain a consistent quality as far as solids in it. Varying solids in a wastewater treatment plant effluent create problems for that type of disinfection process. Chlorine actually does a better job and is more forgiving.
Okay.
I think chlorine is always a concern, but like anything, if you have respect for it, if you have training, you follow the proper procedures, it can be handled safely. And we use the fire department as in our buddy system there. They're our backup anytime we break a connection, deal with chlorine, they are there with watching our back, make sure we don't have any significant issues.
Okay, thank you.
The 700 series, we have 715 in the budget for buildings. We have $103,800 in there. Much of that is associated with those line items that are indicated. We're going to repair and recoat the drive-it system, which is the exterior of the headworks building, the north end of the plant, for $45,000. A draft mixer and the digester for $13,800. We're going to replace some garage doors. I believe that's 3 garage doors, and we'll also have it's a cost of doing some air scrubbing at the Market Street lift station. Market Street lift station is the pumping station that's on the south side of the auditorium and the south side of that parking lot down there near the boat ramps. And we're going to use some technology that we've become familiar with and see if we can help reduce the amount of odor that emanates from that particular lift station. 731 line item is streets. We budget an amount of money in there annually to do concrete repairs at the wastewater treatment plant. It could be associated with process tanks. It also could be roadway work. The plant was put online in 1982, and wastewater is a corrosive atmosphere, and there's always the need to do some work on concrete. Next slide, please. The 739 is classified as other. We have $162,500 in there. We have 3 roofs that we're going to replace. We also have a 1959 vintage water main that was put in with the original plant that comes down off of Main Street and goes underneath the railroad tracks. We've done work on the plant side of the railroad tracks, but we want to replace that line that comes down off of Main Street and goes underneath the railroad tracks, and that's going to take some time and money to get that done.
1959, that's almost as old as you, Don.
Yeah, almost. Not quite, though. 742 operating equipment. We're going to get a telescopic boom lift. That we have a lot of overhead work inside the buildings as well as outside of the buildings. Difficult to get through to in many cases using a ladder. Single man lifts are difficult. The boom truck will make a big, big difference for us, enable us to get to projects a lot more quickly and safely. And finally, we don't have any money budgeted this upcoming fiscal year for vehicles. Next slide, please. We do have a 5450. I can't remember why that is as opposed to 5402, but I think we have $430,000 in there. That's actually a carryover. This year we had $475,000 to do the air scrubber at the Headworks building. With the engineering and the bidding process and receiving the materials, it became evident we weren't going to get the job done in a manner that we were going to have the system online before basically the odor season, the spring and the summer, was over with. And so the lion's share of that work is actually going to take place in fiscal year 1920 and actually probably go online in the spring of 2020. So we're working on it, but I think that that's going to be very a good project for us to get taken care of because of the impact on the surrounding community in the area of the headworks, as well as inside the atmosphere. I think we're gonna be cleaning that up, getting rid of some of that corrosive atmosphere, and stop some of the corrosion that's occurring within the building. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. Next slide.
As a guy whose office sits right above your plant, I greatly appreciate that air scrubber.
Okay, well, it'll do the job, we're sure of that. I'm supposed to talk about future CIPs. I put a few of the projects that are noteworthy only. I didn't put every single one. Again, the drive-it exterior, we're gonna do the south end of the plant in '21. We're also going to go down to Market Street Lift Station and paint that large metal building that sticks up there to try to clean up the riverfront. We're gonna start working on some of the process tanks, one of the 4 final clarifiers. And we're also paint the interior of the headworks building. Once the odor control system, air scrubber is in place, that'll help the atmosphere inside the building, and the work that we do in there will be a lot longer lasting and clean that place up. So, but we don't want to do that until we get the air scrubber in operation. Fiscal year '22, we've got it's currently scheduled for Gulf Lane Lift Station to be replaced. We're not really sure whether we're going to pursue that or to the extent that we were going to do that. The city does have that sewer master plan that's on the verge of being completed. That is an evaluation of the entire city's sewer system. Where are the bottlenecks? Are the lift stations adequate to handle the existing development? And if there's future development, does something need to be done with those lift station? That lift station, the downstream sewer that receives flow from that lift station. It will certainly be looking at Gulf Lane Lift Station and may have some ideas or suggestions that go counter to what we were planning on doing. So that may or may not occur. Again, we're gonna paint one of the 4 final clarifiers. Next slide. In 2023, another clarifier, the fume hoods in the lab. As I said, the plant's been online since '82. We've done a lot of repair work and maintenance work on those hoods, but we're anticipating the need to replace them. In 2024, we have 6, that's supposed to be 6 natural gas boilers that provide the heating in the plant. By that time, I don't know, how old will that be? That'll be pretty old. And then we do spend a lot of time and effort maintaining those boilers to make them last. So they're in pretty decent shape, but we think by 2024 we may need to do something with them. Another clarifier, and finally the flood protection, which was a number that I didn't put in there. I think that probably came out of City Hall, and whether that would be the time frame or actually fall later, I'm not really sure that that's going to be sufficient funds, because when we build flood protection around the wastewater plant, that means you have to isolate the plant from the river. And when you do that, that means all the water that comes into the plant from the collection system now has to be pumped out to the river. It won't flow by gravity any longer. So you'll have to build a lift station big enough to handle all the flow that can come into the plant, which we've seen flow rates up to 20 million gallons plus. So it'll have to be a big lift station. Market Street Lift Station is only 15 million gallons, I believe, 14 million gallon capacity. So it would have to be a big lift station. We'd also have to put in stormwater pumping stations to handle the surface water. Again, we have to isolate ourselves from the river. So that plus all the wall that you're talking about, that's a pretty good area down there. It's gonna cost some money to do that. Next slide. Okay, so total proposed budget for fiscal year '20, the 5401, the administration, and then 5402, the facility O&M, the air scrubber, which is in 5450, comes to a total of 3.7 million. Then, of course, when you take into account the transfers out that come out of 5401, you have a total expenditure of $5.2 million for fiscal year '20. That is, next slide. Oh, and then we're looking at, as the city manager I think's already explained, we're looking at a rate increase on the water bill for sewers of 3%. And again, that money's for not only us, but that also goes to Public Works for the sewer department they have out there. Next slide. Space available for treatment. The 2010-2012 improvements, we spent $6.2 million. Again, the current design levels are 10.85 million gallons a day, 9,100, and we're currently loaded at the plant at approximately 65%. It's actually a little bit lower than that, but it varies from day to day, week to week, month to month. You just don't really know what you're gonna get for sure, but approximately 65% loaded. Next slide. Significant issues now and in the future. We do have this nutrient reduction strategy that the state of Iowa is requiring us to do something with. It was in our NPDES permit. We've submitted a report to the state and on June 1st of this past calendar year. It was to have included a timetable that specified when we would be taking the recommended steps from the study to make improvements at the plant to reduce the nutrients going to the Mississippi. We did not put a timetable in there because we are spending so much money elsewhere and so many other projects. We're involved in doing an integrated planning project. We have the sewer master plan being completed. All this was hopefully to be brought together so we know how much money we're gonna be spending here, how much money we're gonna be spending there, how much money we're gonna be spending there for all these improvements, all underneath this thing called integrated planning. And the state has allowed us to wait until July 1st of this current calendar year to submit the timetable at which we will make the improvements for the nutrient reduction improvements at the plant. Now, when the report was done this past June, the improvements that they identified in the report after analyzing the facility, what we had there, what could be done, was put at $5.9 million at that time.
And 600,000 of
And the annual operating cost was gonna be around $300,000.
300? I was thinking 6, but.
Yeah, 301,000 is what they said. So, when will that project be done will be determined by this.
We're proposing in 2070.
Yeah, that may be, I don't know what the state will allow us to do.
Actually, and that is one that, as we go and talk with them, it's where do they want to prioritize sewer separation versus doing the
That's right.
NMP removal versus some of the other projects that need to be done. And they've expressed a willingness to work with us on doing that, but they'd like to see what our proposal is, and we've been kind of waiting on what we get back from the master plan information, and then we've been doing some background work with law firm Dustin to try to put together some of this information on the integrated plan. I don't know if you're gonna cover that at all, Nick, or when you do your presentation.
We don't have what they call the 10 state standards quantity of available storage for our biosolids. We've been making what we have available to us work, but that could raise its ugly head at any time, and suddenly we might find it necessary to build a storage facility for our biosolids. And that's been estimated up to $1 million to do that. Odors are going to continue to be a concern as the city continues to separate, although I think we are starting to look at the feasibility of maybe doing a presumptive approach, which may help us avoid the odors that generally are associated with a completely separated sewer system. The odor control system, the air scrubber we're going to be putting in the spring of 2020 will help deal with the odors on the plant site. And of course, then you've got the flood mitigation associated with the wastewater plant. The sewer master plan findings, what's it going to say about our lift stations out there? What's it going to say about our force mains? What's it going to say about our collection systems? That is something that we'll probably be seeing in the near future, and I don't know what that's going to be. Next slide. And there we are. We're all enjoying clean water coming down from the sky. And the next slide is, are there any questions?
Council, questions? Okay.
Not bad.
Not bad, Don.
And I will tell you, Don, because I was keeping track for you, because I knew you'd catch some grief. Jim took 3 minutes of your time.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, shush.
And Rhonda milked out the last 5 minutes of hers, but anyways,
I did.
wrestling.
I put it on the stopwatch.
This next one's gonna be real interesting.
Okay, we're gonna talk about the solid waste department. Okay, so there he is. My lid is fully closed. I don't know what is that thing doing in the middle of that picture?
I don't know, I don't have it on my,
It's not on mine.
sheet.
Did you do something?
It's covering his mouth.
Blame Jim.
Oh, there it is.
There it is.
I don't know what I did.
James, come on.
I have room to spare because I recycle. We had a solid waste commission meeting earlier this afternoon, and I've looked at the numbers. Everybody's got concerns about what are the impact of our CART program gonna have on recycling in the city of Burlington. It's just too early to tell. We just don't know yet.
One thing that I noted just going through that presentation at the DMC, every community over the last 10 years has seen their recycling, the volume go down. You paused your time.
No, I forgot to stop.
So part of even as we have a discussion about is there an impact from on recycling from the implementation of the new CART system, it's going to be hard to tell because we've already seen a reduction in the volume of recycling as a community, and it's not just our community; it's every community in the region has seen that.
Okay, so next slide. Okay, solid waste trash fee. The trash fee appears on the water bill, and the basic fee that one pays on the water bill provides for the weekly collection of the trash that's in their trash cart with the lid fully closed. That fee also covers the bag leaf collection program that we run in the fall, the program we run in the spring, the citywide cleanup program in the spring, and also the free disposal for those people who self-haul wood waste to the landfill with a piece of paper in their hand showing that they're a trash-paying customer to the city of Burlington. Next slide. Now, for any trash that does not fit in a cart that's with the lid fully closed, there is the tag. And the tag, one tag for each additional 33-gallon trash bag. And there's the history of what the cost of the tag has been through the years, going back to '95. And our biggest jump was from July of 14 to November of 18, and it went from $2 to $4. $4 is a lot of money for a trash tag for a 33-gallon bag. Next line, or slide. So how do you avoid paying that $4? Well, you can have a 35-gallon cart, the smallest one, that which is what would appear on your water bill, $14.25 a month. 65-gallon cart is $3.25 more. So you could step up in size a cart for less than what you'd pay for one trash tag. Or you could go to a 95 for another $3.25 and to $20.75 a month. And you lessen your likelihood of having to use a trash tag almost any time. But the lid must be fully closed to avoid the trash tag. Note that those monthly fees, $3.75 of the monthly fee is for recycling.
Whether you're recycling or not.
Whether you recycle or not, and the 95-gallon cart, if you take that $3.75 off there, it's $17 a month for a 95-gallon cart, which I think is comparable to what many people pay for a private hauler. But a private hauler they don't make the people follow the rules like we do. Next slide.
Now, Dawn, real
Yes.
quick, sorry to interrupt you. So if somebody has a piece of furniture that breaks down, can they still buy the tags and adhere that and then have it?
We'll talk about that.
Okay, hold that.
So, another option, let's see, yeah. Okay, next one, right. Okay, so additional options. You can get an additional 65-gallon cart to go along with your primary cart for $8 a month, which I think is a steal.
Cheap.
You are quite a
You could get
salesman.
an additional 95-gallon cart for $12 a month.
Tell 'em
Now,
about
this
it.
would be on top of your fee that you're paying for your primary cart. Again, it's cheaper if you're buying tags to go and seriously consider what you're gonna get for having these additional carts. Even if a 95-gallon cart isn't big enough, think about stepping up and getting another cart. Next slide. So, what is the distribution of carts in the city of Burlington? Well, right now, it's approximately 30% of our customers have the 35-gallon cart, about 58% have the 65-gallon cart, and about 12% have the 95. Now, I did not go back to the computer system to look. Some of those 65-gallon cart users and 95 have a second cart. They have an additional cart. We have somebody out there who has 4 95-gallon carts.
You got to be kidding me.
No, 4 95-gallon.
me.
I
It's
don't
not
know.
me.
I don't know if it's anybody in this room, but they have 4 95.
It is, and they're filled up every week, but gosh.
Next slide. Next
Well, that's,
slide.
well, to be fair, we put some of our garbage in other people's garbage too, so.
And, you know, that is okay to do that if the neighbor authorizes you to do that. If you put it in there without authorization, that could be considered an illegal dump. Okay, here's an additional option that some people don't utilize: recycle. You can use the curbside program, or you can use the 24/7 drop-off at the recycling center, which is at 1818 West Burlington Avenue. You need to realize your trash fee on your water bill will include, as of July 1st of 2019, $3.85 for recycling. Whether you're using it or not, you're paying that $3.85 as part of your trash fee. And if you recycle, you can help reduce your volume that's in the trash cart. The lid must be fully closed. Next line. So, what is the recycling program services? Well, they provide curbside collection only, not alley, curbside only, and they come through every 2 weeks. They provide a 24-hour, 7-day drop-off operation. They process the recyclables that they have, and they sell them. They educate the public. They do things for schools with industries, trying to help them identify potential recycling. They have a household hazardous chemical program facility at the landfill. And we contract with the Des Moines County Area Recyclers. They bill us that $3.75 come July 1st, $3.85 for every eligible household. And I have people say, I don't recycle. Maybe they don't use the curbside program, but do they ever take anything to the 24-hour, 7 drop-off? Do they have children that go to the school system and participate in the recycling program there? Do they ever take paint or something like that at the household? All of that is part of that $3.75. They're paying for it. They should go ahead and utilize the service. Next slide. So, maybe you can get away from using the trash tags entirely, but the trash tags do have other purposes than the extra 33-gallon bag of extra trash that doesn't fit in your cart with the lid fully closed. These are the number of tags. They are $4 tags. There has been an issue over these last few months where evidently some of our retailers are still selling the orange tags. Now, I don't believe the City Hall has any more orange tags to sell to retailers. I think if you're an individual and you have an odd number of orange tags that you want to use and not lose the money that you paid for them, I believe that we still
Can
have
exchange
some
them
in reserve where they can come up to the counter and they say, can I buy one orange tag? So now I have 2, and 2 times 2 is 4. I can put that on that extra trash bag. But these are basically $4 tags. You put one of the orange tags on there, they won't collect it. It has to be $4. Each of those represents a $4 trash tag. Next line.
So a folding table, would that count as one tag? It's a small table.
Yes.
Okay,
And you
thanks.
don't have to call those in, Don?
No.
TVs, you don't have to call TVs in?
Now, well, for the ones that are in, whatever color that is, the computer, the appliances, the TVs, those are scheduled special pickups. Now, you can, and we encourage people, look at, for a computer monitor, that's small enough that you could take it yourself in your car and take it to the HAZCAM location, or some people have a dehumidifier or something like that, which is an appliance. They can take that to the recycling center and pay $10 cash instead of buying 4 trash tags. So they can save money, but it costs them time, cost them the gas to get there, and they got to make the effort themselves. But yes, those have to be scheduled for, and we send out a truck like once every 2 weeks. Next slide. Okay, 2018 trash program collections. We collected in 2017, 2018, 5,564 tons, or approximately an average of 107 tons per week. That does not include the leaves, and it does not include the citywide cleanup program materials. 274 tons in 2017, 2018 were citywide cleanup. You add those two figures together, and we picked up 5838 total tons of trash garbage in that fiscal year. Next slide. Well, who picks that stuff up? Well, we have 7 full-time drivers, we have 1 part-time driver, and we do flesh out the crew using temporary labor, paid out of 5301-519 during our specialty programs. We call the leaf program a specialty program. The citywide cleanup is a specialty program. So it's not just those 8 people when we're in the midst of those programs. We get a few extra people to help out. Next slide. We have 7 trucks. The oldest is 20 years, newest 2.5, age 10.5, average age 10.5, medium age 11, replacement rate about every 14 years. Next slide. 2017-18 recycling collections. 558 tons of recyclables that were collected at curbside, which is about 10% of the tonnage of garbage that we picked up in that same time period. So now that does not, and then also we had 28 tons that we picked up at various city departments. The city departments do participate in the recycling program. 1,304 tons of recyclables were picked up at the 24/7 drop-off. I oftentimes take my recyclables there as opposed to using the curbside program. So I'm sure a lot of that tonnage at the drop-off is also from the citizens of Burlington. Because once every 2 weeks may not be enough, frequently enough, and you just want to go ahead, run your errand, and drop the recyclables off. But the drop-off is available. County residents, Burlington and West Burlington residents are all contributing to that 24/7 drop-off. Next slide. So where does the revenue come to pay for our programs? We get the trash fee that's on the water bill. We also will get trash tag revenue. The retailers pay $3.95 at the counter at City Hall, and then they turn around and sell them for $4 typically. Based on what I saw in the budget, we're estimating about 100 trash tags a week. That, we don't know where that's gonna end up.
That's just a number as
That's
far
just
as
a
I'm
number.
concerned.
The carts are still, I had 8 carts that were supposed to go out today. We didn't get them out because of the weather and because of personnel issues and such. But I would say on average, we're probably taking out somewhere between 7 and 12 carts a week. Some of them are exchanges. I would say maybe 20% are exchanges, 25%. Others are an additional cart. And then some are apartments or brand new houses that haven't had a cart since the inception of the program, and so it's the first cart that they get. But they're still flowing out. An additional fee source would be the dumpster permit. The private haulers, if they put a dumpster in city right away, they have to pay a fee to the city to cover that dumpster being city right away. Next slide. Okay, so this is kind of not apples to apples because we went from a 33-gallon can or bag to a 35-gallon cart. But you can see in July of 2016, the basic fee, meaning what they would pay for trash services, the leaves collection, the citywide cleanup, taking wood waste out there, that collection of that 133 for $10.20 a month, and then the recycling center was charging the city $3.55 per household. So the total fee that they saw on their water bill for 1 month would be $13.75. The fee has progressed up into November of 2018. It remained at the council's desire for a 35-gallon cart. When the cart program started, you said, we don't want to change the fee. So if they get a 35-gallon cart, leave it the same. So it stayed at $10.50, then $3.75 for the recycling, or $14.25 a month. Most water bills in the city are 3 months, so it was $42.75 line item on their water bill. Next slide. So what's our proposed increase for this next fiscal year? Well, for the trash, the basic service, it's going to be minus 10 cents. And the recycling services are going up 10 cents. So the end result is the increase on the water bill for trash for someone who has a 35-gallon cart, it would stay the same. They'd be paying $14.25 a month, or 3 months at $42.75.
Nice. Woo-hoo.
Okay, so evidently the city manager thinks we're collecting sufficient funds.
I think we have enough folks that are on the 65-gallon to help make the program work.
Yeah. Of all the carts that are exchanged, the lion's share is to move from a 35 to a 65. Some have jumped to 95. Some have gone from 65 to 95.
And you already let us know before that the Furnos have 4, so.
Yeah. All right, next slide. So 35-gallon cart, trash fee and the water bill effective July 1st will be unchanged. It'll still be $42.75 for a 3-month bill. Next slide. We have 7 full-time personnel. The budget line item is 5301. The 400 series are personnel. We have 7 full-time, 1 part-time driver. That's in the 400 series and the various things associated with 400 series to cover that group. We have contractual services in the 500 series of the budget. 519, other professional services, that's where we pay for the temporary labor that we have helping us when we do our specialty programs. Next line, or slide. The 524 is the sanitation landfill services. That's where we pay for the landfill tipping fees. That covers the household garbage. That covers the citywide cleanup material that we take out there that's not covered by the
Credit.
community project allowance that we have. And people who self-haul brush with their bill showing that they're a trash paying customer, that gets charged and paid for out of that account. When we take TVs and appliances and tires from customers there, they buy the trash tags, then we turn around and get billed by the landfill for the disposal of that material. And of course, they charge us $3.75, soon to be $3.85 a month per eligible household on a monthly basis, and that also gets paid for out of that 524 line item. Next line. 529, miscellaneous technical services. Remember in the wastewater, we were billed by the water department for billing services. 2/3 was paid by wastewater. The other 1/3 currently is paid by the solid waste fund of that billing cost that the water department charges us. If we were to go to monthly billing, as often has been suggested for the bills, well, that's 3 times the mailing, 3 times the postage, 3 times the hauling, so those costs would go up. You'd have to weigh that for the benefit of doing a monthly bill as opposed to remaining with a quarterly bill. Commodities are the 600 series in the budget. The 700 series, we have 743 vehicles. There's a new garbage truck that's in there for the upcoming fiscal year, and that's actually the truck for this fiscal year. That cost there would be for a fully automated truck. That's where you got the arm that comes out and it grabs the cart while the man is still in the cab operating the joystick. The city manager has been on me about getting out and looking at a truck and getting one chosen. I haven't done that yet. I intend to start looking at them here within the next 6 weeks or so and try to figure out, there's a lot of options out there. There's the one-arm bandit, there's a two-arm bandit, there's the one-arm bandit that goes out and swings it in a full arc, which you have to have clearances. You've got another one that goes out and pulls it straight back into the truck and goes up in close quarters. There's a
Like
lot
you're
of
doing yoga there,
things to
Don.
consider. There's a lot of things to consider there. How would those trucks work with a windrow of plowed snow between the cart and the truck? Every YouTube video I've watched on the computers has been the cart is on level ground with the truck.
Perfect conditions.
I don't see a cart sitting up on a piece of terraced ground. It sits up 2 foot higher than where the truck is sitting. I don't see a windrow of 2 foot of snow that's frozen between the cart and the truck. I do see him working in alleys, which is encouraging. But I know also I've read articles about communities who are doing alley pickup trying to get out to the curbside because they're doing so much damage to garages and landscaping and trucks in the alleys. I'm not gonna go out and spend $275,000 on a truck that can be used for 10% of the houses and use them out there in Canterbury or whatever, and not be able to use it in the core of the city. So it's gonna be looked at very carefully. Next slide. So future CIP, the current figures are in for, as I said, the truck that's in for 2020 is actually for 2019. I don't know, I might be able to get a truck purchased yet this year if I'm willing to work something out, and I can work something out with City Hall. We might be able to do that, I don't know. But there's a truck in the budget for 2021. That would be for a rear load, as well as the 2023 is a rear load cost with tippers. Next slide. Okay, the 900 series, there we are. I don't know, you want to talk about that a little bit?
No debt service transfer. But administrative transfer is very similar. That's going to the general fund and again, covering central overhead costs for all services provided.
Our guys do a lot of complaining to City Hall, and it takes up a lot of human resources time dealing with us. Next slide. So there's a kind of a summary of the budget, 400 series, it's a 5301 again, then 400 series, 500 series, 600, 700 series, total 1.9 million, but then we have the transfer out, which takes it to $2.1 million for fiscal year 1920. Next slide. Program-related issues. This is the exact slide that I had last year before we went to the CART program. Wear and tear on employees, physical stress, pseudo-policemen, the lid must be fully closed. Are they following the rules? Asked to enforce all the rules and restrictions. People are supposed to be putting their garbage that is putrescible, food-related, into plastic bags and seal it. My guys are telling me probably 50% of the people just, it's like they have a can in their house and they just throw all their food materials in there and they dump it in the cart. We are in winter, it's not an issue, but the summer, I don't know.
They think 50%?
They would say 50%. If we were to refuse to pick up the cart because it's not bagged properly, they said that they'd be leaving 50% of the carts behind. Physical, they're not hurting their backs. Now they're using their shoulders, pulling through that 8-inch snow. The windrows, people put their carts on there and they're fighting the carts and people want the carts back up. So they're doing a lot with their shoulders. And so it's a different type of a physical stress, but those carts still are a lot of work, especially with the 95-gallon carts And if you have animals, people put in kitty litter and stuff, that is dense
I thought you
material,
were gonna say
is
they put
heavy.
animals in the.
All right, yeah, no.
Animals.
Nuisances, uncollected garbage
John,
impacts.
Traceable
I
stuff.
think,
On kitty litter, do we require that to be in a bag?
It should be.
Yeah.
Should be,
Anything.
well,
loose
it should
like
be
that.
because of the
It's
dust.
just weight.
yeah.
It's mainly the weight that's the issue.
The weight is the
The
issue,
issue, yeah, but
but dust can be an issue too.
But in the
Well,
policy,
and
didn't we elect
nasty.
didn't we elect to dictate that all trash that wasn't moderate in size had to be bagged?
It's supposed to be in
Wasn't that in
plastic
the policy
bags.
that we passed here a couple months ago?
that's,
Yeah.
Well, I know that
we might put some reminders out there, so.
anything that could
You
be,
guys
leave a
show
mess. That was one thing I
Yeah.
remember. Anything that could leave a mess, and
Well,
Kitty litter
it should go without saying.
classifies.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Um,
stop you there.
that's okay. Nuisances, uncollected garbage impacts, responsible property, neighboring properties being affected, odors, vermin. We're not in the warm weather. We don't know what we're gonna see there. I do see, when I drive down, I'd say 90% of the carts have lids fully closed. I think that the carts look really nice in the
Agreed. They do.
community. I think they're gonna clean up things, but there's still going to be issues.
Well, brings up a good point, so, you guys did trash collection in our neighborhood today, and I noticed with the snow, that a lot of those cans, especially on some of the streets where you're over time, by the way.
I know it. I'm
Some of
not
the streets
close.
where it's curbside pickup, the snow plows push snow to those cans, not a whole lot the plow can do, but what kind of problem is that putting out there for the guys that are collecting it?
It's new. I was really concerned with the first snow we had, which was right around Thanksgiving.
November.
And that happened in the middle of the week. And the plows were doing their job, running the single pass-through, pushing the windrows back. And the guys were dealing with the carts. And I got a call from a resident saying, hey, they're not putting the cart back in the boulevard. And the guys are saying, man, we're killing ourselves getting the cart out through the snow, over the windrow, out to the truck, and they want us to put the cart back. And I said, well, the guy made the comment, if if the plow comes back for the second and third swipe and the cart's there, what are they gonna do? I made that comment to them, and, they didn't say anything back to me. I did talk with Chris Clements a couple days later, and I said, did the snowplow guys comment anything about the carts being in the way? And they didn't. He said, no, he hadn't had one complaint. I don't really know how that was handled that time. This time, the snow was on the weekend, which I thought helped us because it gave the resident and the snowplows a day or two to deal with the snow and the windrows before the carts were actually set out. They did not get Monday's route, or what is today anyway?
Tuesday.
They did not get Tuesday's route done today because of the slickness and footing. Now and then we had two guys off. We had one guy in jury duty and the other guy called in sick. So now we're down two men, and they just couldn't get it done. They did as much as they could. They'll pick up where they left off tomorrow. And, hopefully the weather will cooperate, the snow will cooperate and such, and we'll get done. But the plowed snow and the depth of snow can pose difficulties. Fully automated truck may overcome that.
Or it may be worse.
I don't know. I have not
Do you-
talked with anybody.
Do you see any reason why we need to dictate, like, for example, if they have a hydrant around their house, they're supposed to clear the snow around the hydrant? Do you see any reason why we should need to dictate that these cans be free and clear, not only to the city or to the street, but,
Well, I know today they left one cart because it was snow on all four sides, and they weren't gonna take a shovel and start digging it out to get the cart out of there. I know that they did that. We would think that people would be considerate of the guys and realize the effort, but there's people out there who didn't like the program and didn't want the program to begin with, so we're gonna have some hard cases. We're gonna have some hard cases. I started to look, I haven't taken the time to go and look at what language or rules or requirements that other communities that have snow issues, what they say. I don't know if I've seen anything on any website where it talks about it. when they have a fully automated truck, it talks about you have to have 3 feet clearance on either side of the cart so that when the arm goes out there, it can grab that cart. Well, if you're talking about digging back into a snowbank, you're talking about digging an 8-foot wide area so the cart could sit in the middle and the arm could get it. There's a lot of issues. It's new to us. We're trying to work through it. It's going to take some time. We would just ask that people would realize how difficult it is for the men in dealing with the wind, road, snow. I mean, I'm sure Public Works gets calls from people who said, you just plowed my driveway in after I just dug it out. You know, and the same thing's gonna be the issue with the carts as well.
Now, Don, when we have injuries or weather-related delays, are we able to post that anywhere so that people know, okay, my cart wasn't picked up and it's not because, I'm trying to eliminate a phone call on your end.
We've done some of that. The holiday weeks are gonna be a real challenge for us. This New Year's and Christmas, where they fell on Thursday and Friday, that actually worked to our advantage. When it fell on Monday and Tuesday. Thanksgiving and the day after Thanksgiving, when it's Thursday, Friday, well then, if we don't have garbage out on Thursday, and they gotta pick up 2 days, Thursday and Friday, and 1 day on Friday, that was a killer. I mean, that was very, very difficult. So I'm gonna look at doing something different for holiday weeks. I'm gonna have to, because it's just too hard for the guys to get everything done. So it's a learning curve. There's things we have to learn. Where are we at here? Let's go to the next slide. Oh, so I want to propose some changes. I'm not expecting a decision tonight. I'd like to make a decision tonight, but it's not going to make you happy. But citywide cleanup, I brought this up before when we were approaching the concept of the cart program. Carts do take more time to collect than, it doesn't make much sense, but to wheel the cart over there, put it on the tipper, it saves some of the wear and tear on the employee, but then they've got to take the cart and they've got to put it back. And the cycling of that truck takes more time. Fully automated truck can save a lot of time, picks up more houses. But citywide cleanup, that is going to be a significant problem for us. I've said for a long time, I'd like to see the citywide cleanup become a bulky item program only.
I'm in.
Okay, and I'll talk about that in a few minutes. I'd like to eliminate the allowance of trash cans and carts for leaf collection. Why? This winter or this fall, we had some cold weather, leaves are wet, they get in the can, they're frozen. Here's a guy picking up a 33-gallon can, holding it up the truck, trying to shake it out. If he bangs it on the truck, there's so many cheap plastic cans out there, they'll break. And then they get mad because we've mistreated their can. Take a bag, you throw it in, you're done. You take a can, and you're trying to shake leaves out, they'll leave it because they can't get out, but they try to get that stuff out of there. The carts, if you have a lot of leaves, and you've got the carts out there, and you have a holiday, you got 2 holiday weeks that fall during the 7-week program. So they're inundated with garbage anyway. They may not get that cart emptied so that the next day it's available to be used for garbage.
I'm in. That was gonna be my question, is I understand not using the can, but can they still be allowed to use the cart?
If you have issues where you're not able to get the garbage done,
That's a risk that the homeowner takes, but.
well,
But do you see
yeah, but the homeowner's gonna they're gonna be
Yeah,
calling and saying,
yeah, they're
hey,
gonna be calling.
I can't put my leaves, or I can't put my garbage in my cart because you left your leaves in the cart. You didn't get it emptied the next day like you were supposed to.
I'm in on both of those.
There's a problem with having the carts being used for leaves. If everything goes perfect, we can get through, but if it doesn't, then that cart sits there full of leaves, and they don't have room to put their garbage in. And they're not gonna wanna go out and buy a $4 trash tag. And we won't pick it up out of a 33-gallon can, the old cans. It should just simply be the bags. I'd really like to add one more crew member, but the city manager, rightfully so, wants me to look into a fully automated truck, because that can make a one-man crew, they can pick up a lot of houses, and we may find that that one truck can make a big difference. The fear that I have is that if you have that truck go down, now all of a sudden you've used that, you've had that efficiency, and now you've lost it. Do you have enough people to get the job done?
So we talk about automated truck, we're, and that, still evaluating it, but what's the ability to get at least one within the fleet? So that you get one route set up
Yeah.
within the 5-day cycle that
Well,
is set up that way.
And then I think that what we would have is a hybrid program, but if you look at that next line, fully automated, curbside versus alley, do we have enough? You gotta get the right type truck to do where you're gonna be picking up. Some communities just tell everybody, out of the alleys, curbside. The one community I read about in North Dakota, they were having big fights at council because the solid waste people wanted all the carts out because they were doing all kinds of damage in the alleys. And they said, they need to be out on the curb. Well, why would you want a perfectly flat curb or alley and then make a person go out and have a terraced property that maybe they got 3, 4, 5, 6 steps they gotta go down, or 20 steps, and put the cart when they got a perfectly flat alley behind them. So there are trucks that will work in an alley, I believe, but we have some really narrow alleys, just as we have some really narrow streets in this community. And so it will take some investigation to determine what it is that we do. So I'm raising more questions than I am answers. Next slide. Well, so what's a bulky item? This is the definition I came up with. A single item in and of itself that will not fit into a 33-gallon garbage bag. Examples: mattresses, box springs, headboards, cribs, dining tables, chairs, end tables, sofas, overstuffed chairs, recliners, chest of drawers, dressers, garden benches, picnic tables, outdoor drills, porch gliders, wardrobes, etc. Bulky items are items that are not easily transported by the average household. Next slide.
Don, quick question for you. Would you be more in favor of continuing what we're doing and moving strictly to a bulky item pickup? Or would you have interest in eliminating the process the way we have it set up now, where we open it up over a month period and you have to pull people from other departments, or bring in part-time people in order to facilitate that? Would it be better just to do a bulky item pickup on a per household basis? Somebody calls and says, hey, I've got a bunch of stuff I want to get picked up. You schedule a date, and then they would pay a fee at the time of pickup?
My concern, I'm not sure about the efficiency of it, the telephone. I mean, right now, we're handling a huge number of calls associated with solid waste. Before we went to the CART program, we got complaints periodically, and we dealt with them. But with the CART program, the calls are, I would say our volume of calls is probably 5 times more on a daily basis dealing with carts and issues. So that if we start doing a scheduling thing where people call, which you have no control over, I mean, you don't know how many people are gonna call. I like the idea of specifying a time period that we were gonna do the program, staff accordingly, and get through it. But again, I'm looking at bulky items.
Part of what you get to do with even moving to this program, you still have the option, you've got a time frame when you might have folks who can't afford to they just don't have the cash to set aside, and that's part of what you're trying to accomplish, is somebody who can't afford to get
With this,
with the bulky item.
the defined period.
If you go to just a scheduled pickup on a per tag, where you're paying a tag basis, you're gonna have some folks who are just gonna continue to hoard and not get rid of stuff.
Yeah, cause what I would probably do is I'd go get a couple tags for a mattress and
Sure.
be
well,
done with it. I wouldn't wait for the
Let's go
cleanup.
to the next slide. So then, items that will no longer be accepted free at the set-out location during what has been called citywide cleanup, maybe renamed bulky item program, would include things like toys, shoes, clothes, hoses, bedside lamps, pictures, computers, radios, dishes, pans, publication pillows, bedding, blankets, throw rugs, etc., all of which would fit into a 33-gallon bag by themselves, or along with other items, and easily could be loaded into and transported in the trunk of a car. I mean, the idea I see of us providing a service for picking up is a lot of people can't take a couch from point A to point B, or they don't have the ability to move a mattress, but they sure can the smaller items. Small.
Well, now that we've got the 65, plus size, I'm
Well-
hoping that that's going to eliminate.
Yeah, they can throw all that stuff
They
in there,
can.
except for the
I don't want it
computer.
going to the
Unless it's already full.
landfill. That's what breaks my
Unless
heart.
it's already full.
Yeah, unless it's already full.
I don't want it going to
He's
the
got a
landfill.
95-gallon cart
If it's
because
reusable.
it's gonna be full.
I've got 4 95-gallon carts, because I
It's
fill them
gonna be
all every
full.
week. I don't have room for
I mean,
this other
just
stuff.
because it's a larger
just
cart
think
does
stuff
not
goes to
mean,
landfill.
if
That's
they
where
have
it's
a
supposed to go,
cart that
honey.
has,
But if it's not
if they have a
going
cart
to
that has
be
extra space in
reused,
it, they could do
Well,
it.
then they need to take.
But they
Close it
don't
and
necessarily.
stuff.
So, this is what I would like to do. So the next slide, So, again, the bulky item only, I'd like to eliminate the allowance of the trash cans and carts for the leaf collection program. Again, hybrid program with a fully automated truck, I'm gonna have to do some research and talk to some people. Absent that, if all we did was semi-auto, which is what we've got, I'd want an extra man to continue the program. But that remains to be seen. Next slide. So, reality disposal is neither simple or cheap. Examples, items once accepted and buried but now banned from the local landfill require special handling, in some cases a handling fee. Tires, batteries, appliances, wood waste, yard waste, TVs, devices with screens, liquids. Next slide. There's no such thing as a way. When we throw anything away, it must go somewhere. Next slide. I shouldn't do this, but I'm going to have the garbage.
I love it. Cute.
Outside of the city bulky item program, you'd still be able to, we don't require people to call us and say, hey, I got a mattress. What they do call us for is say, hey, I got a mattress, how many tags do I have to put on it? And then they set it out with their trash and we pick it up. But the idea of scheduling it in one program is the idea that we can staff up, have the people available to get the job done.
Done.
Yes.
The last 2 falls, we've had the roll-offs down at the, just south of the auditorium.
Right?
Is that something that you see as valuable to continue?
I think that the community as a whole benefits from doing something like that.
Had you talked about doing your bulky item in the spring and in coordination with having that type of a roll-off down there at the same time for the other items?
I actually coerced the city manager in putting a little extra money into my budget in the 524, the landfill, that if we wanted to do it, which I don't want to do it, we could put roll-off containers like what the nuisance department has done for the last 2 years. This year was on the riverfront. Last year, I think they did 2 church parking lots. And they put a roll-off container there, and it was there for 1 day, maybe 2 days at the most.
Yep.
And they allowed people to take those small items that will fit into a trunk of the car, drive there, and put the stuff in.
Did you talk to them about doing that in the spring then too?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I was actually surprised. I don't want to get the person in trouble by naming who it was, but they seemed like, hey, yeah, that sounds exciting. I think that would be a good idea. I don't want to do it.
I could.
I don't want to do it. I won't have the people to do
The
it.
hardest issue is getting someone who's there to staff it, and, but I could see the value of having that potentially for maybe, it'd be nice to be able to do it for a full week, a Monday through Friday, but I don't know if that's feasible to do or not.
So who do I talk to about making these changes?
The coordination that you're talking about with that, you were talking with the right person downstairs to
But for
coordinate
me,
getting it done.
I mean, it's going to be a
But
big.
what I think you're looking to get done is is the council willing to move towards the concept of having just a bulky item pickup? And then saying, you may be,
when we do that, educating the public is like
Paramount.
next to
That's
impossible.
gonna be really tough.
I-
to-
So,
'Cause with the
my
first year, you're
concern,
gonna-
I think the first year will be very difficult.
my
You're gonna
concern
end up
is
picking up
that
all the
we
bulky,
set the
you're gonna have all the stuff
policy,
lying around.
the guys will come to a house, there'll be some bulky items amongst all this other stuff, which
Yeah.
they see.
They'll
They'll
take the,
pick up the bulky items if they can get to it.
Right.
Many times the stuff's buried.
And
And take the bulky item, leave the rest, which we have left many piles, and then the nuisance department deals with it, and somehow it gets
And
cleaned
that's,
up.
and that's part of the reason they see the value of it from their enforcement effort and what they have to go through to
But
making
too,
sure that we
the
have some of
timing
these
on
other
when those
things.
containers are available versus how long does that pile sit there?
Yeah.
see,
that's why I brought up the individual planned pickup, because, and we talked about this last fall.
Yeah, we
is
did.
We drive around town, and you're picking up Tuesday's route on Wednesday, and people put all their stuff out on Saturday, and then it's sifted through by 100 different vehicles or 100 different people over a 4-day period, and what was a nice stack of stuff that needed to be collected turns into
It's spread everywhere.
nuisance issues that are now either blowing or have moved into the street, or they're in somebody else's yard, or stuff just gets pulled out of sacks. I mean, it was a nightmare last year. I went down South Street on a Monday, and it was a nice stack, and by the time you guys got it picked up, not that it's your problem, but by the time it got picked up, 30 people had gone through it, and the stuff spread through the street. I understand, I think it makes sense to move to a bulky item pickup. I still think that there's a lot of value in creating a one-time with a fee,
A scheduled.
scheduled pickup, because
Well,
I
most of the
mean-
people that have these huge piles are not gonna be people, they're gonna be able to pull out a wallet or a checkbook.
I like spring cleaning, I just
Right.
wanna say that, I know that not
I
everybody's
do
happy with
too.
it, but I don't
Anytime
ever
we
want-
can keep
I don't wanna
something
get
out
rid
of the
spring
landfill,
cleaning.
I'm
I do
for
not wanna
it.
get rid of
You're
spring
still
cleaning.
gonna do is just bulky items.
No, I mean, all of it.
Well, I
Where they
wanna
come
see-
around the process that we have set up right now, dude, I
You know
I
what,
like
we
that.
didn't think they'd be able to
Too.
figure out the card program, and they have.
I'm not about to figure it out, I'm saying I just.
the other problem I
want it
have
to
is,
go.
if somebody has 2 or 3 items, and they have those items several months or a month after we've already done this pickup, then they stick it outside their house and it sits there until the next cleanup.
They can put a tag on them.
Well, they could, but
Yeah.
most of those people, like you said, aren't willing to pull their wallet out right away.
Yeah.
That's
So if it's gonna be $10 to pick up a bunch of items, that's cheaper than going out and buying, what, 10 or 15 tags if they need to do a mattress or a sofa and all that
$10
stuff?
is not really very much money to send a truck out with a couple men
Yeah.
and spend 15 minutes to a half an hour picking up stuff.
I would agree, but.
How much, I just don't,
The reason why I came up, or I didn't come up with the idea, I got the idea from the city of Davenport, when we went up there
There are communities
last
that
year,
do what you're saying.
and walked with their nuisance department. One of the biggest things that we got from feedback standpoint was when they initiated that program, that's when they saw the most dramatic decrease of nuisance issues. Because now it's an extremely nominal fee, and they're able to clean up entire yards or entire households, get all that stuff out of there, and people are kinda able to start fresh. You have only so much curb, a lot of people are only willing to move so much stuff out. If it's off-season, then the stuff sits there, then it becomes
It
part of
makes
your
sense, so it
yard.
doesn't sit
I
there for
understand
all
that, but you
year.
have
but-
to have the people, you
Pros and
have to have
cons.
the equipment, you
Completely
have to have the
understand.
time to do it, and, anyway, so those are the things that I would like to do in solid waste. I'd like to get rid of the garbage cans, the carts relief program. I'd like to go to a bulky item program. If we're looking at doing something on a riverfront roll-off program, we can try to work that internally and try to figure something else on that. And in the meantime, I will be looking at fully automated trucks to find out if I can find a truck that we get the biggest bang for the buck.
Again, the changes that Don is speaking of tonight are not necessarily budget-related items. They are part of how the program functions, though. And so coming to a decision on making a change on this isn't something that has to be solved as part of the budget-making process. But this is a good time to be looking at this and I think we'll be seeing this as a work session item, maybe not the next work session, but probably the first one into February is for an ongoing discussion about where you're feeling about what's been presented as some possibilities.
When?
First work session in February. If you need it the second, we can do that.
You don't need time to prepare, you're already ready for it, Don.
I just want to get it outside of the budget discussion, so.
Yeah.
Right on, right on.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
we'll
we-
work that out.
Is that
Yeah,
fair,
we need to
Don?
get that, well, that'll be an easy one to get squashed too, so.
You want it sooner?
No, we'll talk more.
Okay.
The one thing I didn't put on there is I'd like to see the 35s go away. I talked to a fully automated truck dealer, and he said, you're gonna rue the day when you start trying to pick up 35s with a fully automated truck.
Why is that?
Because the cart arm, the claw is set up, you adjust it for your cart size. We've got 95s, 65s, and 35s. 35s will have a tendency to want to slip out of the grip and fall into the truck. And people stuff stuff, we've seen that on semi-automated, people stuff stuff in there and it doesn't want to come out. You
Yeah,
can
those
shake,
yeah,
you can
yeah.
shake the cart, but it doesn't want to come
Shape
out.
of those 35s.
So I don't have any intent, I got 75, 35s in inventory right now. And it's been holding there for quite a while. I'm gonna have to buy some 65s and 95s because they're going out the door. I'd like to see the 75s get used up. and
Could I get
that-
2 more 95s delivered?
I'm a little sorry, you guys.
You know, we got a cap
he's
on that, this guy's taking
financially
advantage of the
supporting-
program, he's taking advantage of the system.
He's financially supporting
I
solid
think
waste.
he's sharing with his neighborhood,
On his
he's
own.
taking advantage of the system. So, all right, before things turn ugly, we're going to call it a night. Thank you, everybody, good night.
Yeah, just
Good
hit,
Right here.
no, this one.